as I said, there are a number of questions that have been put together by the organizers. Each candidate has had an opportunity to look over these questions. They will have 2 minutes to respond, and then again the 30 seconds. And the first question will now be for Kenzie McKinnon, if I'm doing this right, and I think I am. The question, and I'll read it out, it's rather long, as some of these questions tend to be, but you'll get the point. For 2 decades, tuition fees in Nova Scotia have been the highest in the country. As a result, average student debt in Nova Scotia is the 2nd highest in Canada. Meanwhile, 82% of all jobs in Nova Scotia require post-secondary education. Clearly, access to post-secondary education must be a priority of the government during this economic recession. Given the declining affordability of universities and colleges, and here's the nub of the question, will you work to ensure that tuition fees are reduced if elected? Mr. McKinnon.
I have to answer that question and put it in context, especially in reply to Howard's last comments. Remember, it's true, some of the circumstances that Howard described in his comments. But the context of the Liberal government was elected in 1993 after 15 years of Conservative government supported by the NDP, in which they spent us into the ground. Every program, in fact, that they carried out, the NDP were insisting upon more money being spent on those programs. It was the Liberals throughout that period who resisted that excess spending. And that left us in a position in 1993 where this province was broke. You know, John Savage was the premier who was elected in 1993, and he came in, and there was never a man who was a stronger community organizer than John Savage, who wanted to do more constructive things, and his hands were completely tied. He had nothing. The only way, the reason we're having conversations now about spending money in Nova Scotia is because that government took the bull by the horns and made financial sense out of our fiscal position provincially. So one of the things that happened as a result of that time was that tuitions went up because there was no money available to continue funding universities the way they had been in the past. That's true. That's regrettable. Our universities are perhaps our most important social resource we have in Nova Scotia. Our future depends upon our universities. Now, we were very fortunate. 20 years ago, you know, Halifax and Oshawa, you would have said, lucky Oshawa, it's got those car plants, all we have is universities. Well, today, Halifax is in a much stronger position because of universities. But we have to be realistic. We can't do what we did in the 80s and 70s. We can't spend foolishly. The big issue, going back to the theme I made before, is accessibility. We have to make sure we make arrangements between the province and the universities that we guarantee that every Nova Scotian has the maximum opportunity to gain access to those universities. If we can keep the debt down to individual students, all the better, but accessibility is the most important thing.
Jessica.
The short answer is yes. Yes, we will work to ensure tuition fees are reduced. In fact, I think our party's record on this is clear. There's a 3-year plan to bring the tuition fees in Nova Scotia to the national average, and we're on course for that. A major building block of the Building for Growth program is $256 million for university infrastructure, which is an impressive amount. There's a $66 million bursary fund that was not previously available. Time and time again, I believe the PC party has shown its commitment to post-secondary education, to attracting students here and to keeping students here. We've also increased the post-secondary tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000, which is effective now. And as was noted on the debates last night, Nova Scotia students are the only ones in Canada this year that are paying less than they were last year. That was the long answer.
Also yes, and then some. I see yours and raise you too. And here's why. The whole story of Nova Scotia politics since 2003 has been that the agenda on which the NDP ran in that election was adopted by the PCs, and they tried to implement it, but they didn't do a very good job. You may recall that in 2003, in that provincial election, part of our main platform was to freeze tuition fees at post-secondary education institutions. What the Tories have actually done is they didn't adopt the freeze. What they did was they negotiated a memorandum of understanding with the universities in which they would allow tuition fees with some departments excluded, to rise by cost of living every year. So the cost has continued to go up. We were the ones who were the advocates for a freeze in 2003, and that platform, that intention, was taken over by the Tories but not implemented in a very good way. We recognize that accessibility to post-secondary education is crucial. We recognize that talent is not the exclusive purview of the middle and upper middle classes, and that debt aversion, that is to say, the notion that the poorest students really do see, people who come from the poorest backgrounds really do see tuition as a real barrier, has to be addressed. And that's one of the main reasons. It's not that the middle class can't afford it, it's that the poorest students who have just as much talent as anyone else should be able to go to university, should be able to go to community college. So yes, we're certainly on side with that, and we have continued to speak up for it every year since 2003.
Okay, Kenzie, with 30 seconds to respond.
I do want to go back to the comment that Howard made about the 2003 platform about advocating freezing tuition, and those kinds of distinctions are really important in a province which has a very thin fiscal margin. Now, freezing tuition is not the thing to do. All that does is forces universities to perform tasks without having additional money to do that. The result of that will be you'll have poor facilities, you'll have maintenance not being carried out, you'll have university professors leaving because they're not getting paid comparative to other places. You'll have larger classes. Freezing tuition without providing universities with adequate funding sources elsewhere is not a good process.
That is your time. Okay.